I'm highly honored in welcoming and introducing our next esteemed guest, Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati ji. She is a renowned motivational speaker and best-selling author, providing spiritual services, wisdom teaching, sacred actions, and deep spiritual practices. Presently living at Paramatniketan in Rishikesh, India, but originally from Los Angeles and a graduate from Stanford University. She is a Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance, President of Divine Shakti Foundation, and Director of the famous International Yoga Festival. She has spoken at several United Nations events, including with the Secretary General and Deputy Secretary General of the UN. She has been featured at many renowned news networks such as CNN, New York Times, Discovery Channel, BBC, etc. Sadhvi ji has received numerous national and international awards. She serves on United Nations Faith Advisory Council on Religion, the Steering Committee for Partnership for Religion and Sustainable Development, and the Steering Committee for the World Bank United Nations. Sadhvi ji is the author of the books By God's Grace, a biography of her Guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswati ji, and Come Home to Yourself. She gives daily spiritual discourses, teaches meditation, provides spiritual counseling and mentoring, and oversees myriad charitable and humanitarian projects and activities at Paramatniketan. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati ji.
Sadhvi Bhagawati Pranam. It is so blissful to have you in person. Thank you very much for taking out time. We played your introduction. Now you are live over here. Nothing can be better than this to have you in person over here, Sadhvi ji. Life management yoga, who can teach better than you? Over to you.
It's such a beautiful blessing, such a beautiful joy to be together with you all in this united consciousness event. And Bhakti, I'm so grateful to you and your team for bringing these events together that remind us that we are united and that we are consciousness. Because we forget that we're one together collectively, but we also forget that who we are is not the body, is not the role, is not the bank account, is not the followers online, is not the narrative, but is actually pure consciousness. And that consciousness is not separate, not from the creator, not from the creation, not from a blade of grass, not from a drop of water, not from a tree, and not from anyone of any race, religion, color, culture, species, that truly we are united and truly we are consciousness. So it's such a joy to be with you. And I love the theme of transforming and managing our lives, ourself, through Bhakti yoga. Because love is the answer. I mean, we see it in every aspect of our life. Where there isn't love, there's suffering. Where there is love, there's healing. But what Bhakti gives us is the opportunity to have that love of the divine, and therefore that love of all. You know, in the Hindu Vedic lineage and tradition, we've had so many revered masters, from Satya Sai Baba to Neem Karoli Babaji, whose core teachings, as passed on by their lineages and their disciples, were basically just love all, love all. And it's interesting because I know we have so many people from other religions and other cultures and other countries around the world here. And one of the beautiful teachings from the Bible also is the teaching that Jesus Christ gives of love thy neighbor as thyself. And it's so interesting because I asked all of the Christians that I knew growing up, then as I've had the beautiful blessing of being in India for the last 30 years and interacting with so many leaders of different religions from around the world on so many global platforms, I've asked Christian leaders the same question. And I've asked followers of Satya Sai Babaji and followers of Neem Karoli Babaji, is did any of them give any more specifics around these teachings? Because when you say love all, for example, if we don't even know everyone, how can we possibly love everyone? And if Jesus Christ says, love thy neighbor, I was asking, well, was he more specific? Like, did he say everybody on your block, everybody in your zip code, your PIN code, everybody in your area code? Did he say, a 50-meter radius or a 2-kilometer radius? And everybody always said, no more specifics. Just our leaders have said, love all. In the Bible, he says, love thy neighbor as thyself. And what I realized is that the only way to actually take these teachings deeply is to love God and see God in all. There is actually no other way of fulfilling that teaching, because most of us don't even know the neighbors on our block. We certainly don't know everyone. And if we don't know, how can we love? It's hard enough to love those we know. How to love those we don't know? And yet, these are teachings given by sacred divine embodiments, by our gurus, by our masters. They're not meant to be taken lightly or vaguely. And so I realized the teaching is love God and realize that everyone, your next door neighbor and the neighbor 5,000 kilometers away or 50,000 kilometers away, is the divine. See that divine in all. So I love this topic because until and unless you really love God, you cannot fulfill these teachings, whether you come from our tradition, whether you come from a more biblical tradition, either way, we've all been given these teachings. So Bhakti is the only way to actually fulfill that core message, core teaching, core commandment. But I also am so committed and in love with the path of Bhakti, because not only does it enable us to fulfill these core teachings, but it actually heals all of that we are suffering from. If you look at our stress, our anxiety, our depression, so much of it arises from attachment, what we call moha, and expectation. I'm attached to certain things happening the way I want them to, whether it's people speaking a certain way, acting a certain way, living a certain way, treating me a certain way. And so when those don't happen, we become upset, we become miserable, we become depressed, we become angry. Maybe we harm them, maybe we harm ourselves, but we're miserable. And our teachings in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan Krishna emphasizes this over and over again. And in so many of our Vedic teachings, our Yoga Sutras, emphasize the teaching of stability, equanimity, which arises only with Vairagya. But now Vairagya, being our core virtue, is actually a really misunderstood concept. And I want to bring it in here because it's given to all of us as a spiritual precept. You must have Vairagya. But the problem is when you see people who say that they have embodied Vairagya, what do you see? A lot of times, indifference, apathy, disconnection from their hearts, from others, aloofness. People actually think that being aloof is a good thing. I've had so many people say to me, "Oh yeah, I've mastered being aloof." And I think that's not where our human spiritual evolution is meant to go. We're supposed to be more connected, not more disconnected, more compassionate, more caring, not less. Indifference is not a virtue. Apathy is not a virtue. Aloofness is not a virtue. But vairagya is. So how do we understand this? And it was something that for me, I've been in India now 30 years. I came in at 25 as an academic, a scientist. So I've always thought of things in a very kind of rational way. And I thought, this doesn't make any sense. And it didn't make sense until I was listening to a katha, the recitation of our scriptural teachings, our histories, the Puranas. And it was a Srimad Bhagavat katha. And the kathakar was speaking about bhakti, not as just the virtue of love and devotion, but actually as the embodied being who lived on planet Earth, who took birth, who lived, and who bore sons. And bhakti's sons are Gyan, wisdom, and Vairagya. And suddenly I went, oh, now it makes sense. Bhakti is juicy love. It's not dry love. It's juicy, what we call ras, essence of love. It's the love that makes tears pour down from your eyes. It's the love that cracks open your heart. Think of Hanumanji literally opening up his chest to show us Bhagawan Ram and Sita. This is bhakti, juicy. But you cannot give birth from juicy love to dry detachment. So what I realized is, vairagya is not detachment. It's not non-attachment. It's been improperly translated from Sanskrit into English. Vairagya is actually reattachment, meaning we go first to bhakti. You cannot have the son without the mother. So we go first to the mother, to bhakti. Immerse ourselves in love for the divine. And by the way, for all of our listeners from around the world, it doesn't matter what religion you come from. It doesn't matter what name, what form you use to connect to the Supreme. Maybe there is a form, maybe there isn't a form. Maybe there's a name, maybe there isn't a name. Maybe you connect to the divine as cosmic intelligence or source. Doesn't matter. But to that divine, we connect to that divine with love. And when we are connected to the divine in love, then automatically, like offspring comes from a mother, automatically, our attachment, our stuckness in the little things of the world, it disappears. Vairagya is the natural outcome, the offspring of bhakti. And so through bhakti, we free ourselves of that pain of attachment, of that pain of unfulfilled expectations, of the stress and anxiety of, oh my God, is what I want going to happen? I did this report. Is my boss going to like it? I showed up with flowers. Is she going to love me back? Right? Every area of our life. I invested money. Is the market going to rise? I planted seeds. Are they going to sprout and blossom? We don't know. But we have the attachment. We have the expectation. And that expectation leads to the frustration. So through bhakti, we actually attain that core Bhagavad Gita teaching of doing our duty with love, with connection, with sincerity, with dharma, but without attachments to the fruits of that labor. The other thing that Bhakti does for our lives, for ourselves, for our management and our transformation is it gives us the ability to surrender. And if we cannot surrender, Kiss away self-realization, kiss away God realization, surrender, samarpan is critical, a non-negotiable component, not only of peace and joy and happiness in life, but of our ultimate awakening. Because if I'm holding on with a death grip to who I think I am, what I think I need, my past, my future, my story, if I'm holding on to that, there is no way that I can attain moksha. Moksha is liberation, but it's freedom. And if I'm stuck, I cannot be free. But if I don't love the divine, how am I going to surrender? You know, in the West, where I come from, surrender is considered basically a 4-letter word. It's like, don't surrender, you know, never surrender. We have songs and anthems that we sing, never surrender, as though somehow you should only surrender when you're losing, when you're failing, when there's, you know, no other option, throw in the towel. But in our Sanatan Sanskriti, our culture, our Sanatan Dharma, our yogic core philosophies and teachings, Ishwar Pranidhan, surrender, it's right there, long before we get to any asanas. Surrender. You know, in school and in a lot of these, you know, team building retreats in companies, we do something called a trust fall, where you put your arms out and you fall. You fall back into the arms of someone behind you. And sometimes the person behind you is a stranger. Sometimes they're the schoolyard bully. Sometimes they're an enemy or a competitor. But we always drop back. And we drop back because we trust. We know, even if this person is a stranger, an enemy, a competitor, a bully, they're not going to let me fall and crack my head open on the ground. So we fall back. Bhakti enables us to remember, if we can fall back into the arms of a stranger, why not into the arms of the one through whom seeds know how to blossom into trees that give fruit, through whom caterpillars know how to become butterflies, and little baby chicks know how to come out of their egg, and then they know how to fly. It reminds us that there's a perfection in the creation, and it connects us to that so that we can trust fall. Because otherwise life is really stressful. You know, imagine that you're sitting in a car and the driver of the car has no idea where they're going, and you've got to get home. Well, you're going to be hyper vigilant because you know that you've got to tell the driver, right turn up ahead, don't miss it, slow down, it's coming. But now imagine that the driver knows exactly how to get home and is a driver that you trust fully. Well, now your experience of being in the car is completely different. Now you can close your eyes, you can meditate, you can do japa, you can read something, you can listen to a podcast, you can be with your own thoughts. Now you don't have to be hypervigilant or stressed because you know he's going to get me there, she's going to get me there. When we are connected to Bhakti, life becomes like that ride. It's like Arjun with Bhagwan Krishna as the charioteer. He didn't have to micromanage where Krishna was driving. He knew God is driving my chariot. So Bhakti Yoga enables us to let go into life. And lastly, you know, we talk about Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga as though they're 3 separate pathways in. But it's important to realize they're not actually separate. They actually overlap. They're simply 3 separate entry points. So I live here in Rishikesh at Parmarth Niketan on the banks of Mother Ganga. And the point is, get into Ganga. Doesn't matter whether you get in at Parmarth Niketan's Ghat on the steps, or you go up to Ramjula and you walk in off the sandy beach. Doesn't matter how you get in, but get in. And in the same way, in this river of yoga, if love for the divine flows beautifully and freely through you, get in through bhakti. Through that bhakti, the gyan will come. Because when you love someone, naturally you want to know everything you can about them. And the more you love, naturally the more you want to serve. When a loved one is sick in bed, you automatically get up, you make them breakfast, you massage their legs. You don't need, a humanitarian award to do things like that. They flow automatically. But if bhakti doesn't come automatically, and a path of gyan or karma yoga comes more naturally to you, don't worry, start there. Because the more you know about someone, especially when that someone is the divine, automatically the more you're going to love them. So whichever feels the most natural to you, start there. But keep the heart open in love, letting go of the expectation. The universe is not a vending machine. Just because you are a good person, just because you're a yogi, just because God is there for you, doesn't mean that everything you want is going to happen. We let go of that expectation and we allow ourselves to trust fall in juicy love into the arms of the divine. And then we find ourselves bathing in this river of union that we call yoga. So thank you so much to Vikrantji and all of your beautiful team for this wonderful opportunity to share. And so much love to everyone joining us here from all around the world.
Thank you very much, Sadhvi. The examples you put are so natural. Anybody can connect. I personally loved that analogy of a driver who knows the path and driver who doesn't know is amazing. It will remain with me personally for lifetime. I'm sure all the audience over here have learned so many different things, whether it's the definition of Vairagya, importance of Ishwar Pranadhana, and trust to fall. And so rightly you mentioned, get into Gangaji anyways. It doesn't matter which bank you choose. That's amazing. Thank you very much. Jai Ganga.
Jai Ganga.
Jai Ganga.